together here and talk about local economy and the free market. And we are here live at the all-new Nooga Radio, 92.7 and 95.3 HD4. HD simply means high definition. If we were a music station, they would kill to have our signal. But we are, in fact, doing something really much more important than just playing the latest hot tune. But we are looking at the world around us, especially in the context of Chattanooga and Hamilton County, and making an argument in high definition, cinch-around stereo at 95.3 HD4. That's channel 4 on your high definition digital platform. Okay, just go there. And we're also live on your smart device on the TuneIn Radio app, and always live on Facebook. Whatever, even if we have no one on the mic live, we are streaming live on Facebook. Just hit the just play now button on Facebook at Nooga Radio, and also live on TuneIn Radio. So we are here, and I'm the morning host. As I say to people I meet, well, I handle the news and analysis show on 92.7 Nooga Radio, the all-new Nooga Radio channel. And I'm glad to be here to have just a chat with you if you are not normally tuning into my show. It is a public service. We take our controls, our terms and conditions of our federal license very seriously, and that is to provide a public service to you every day with all of our programming. We're the Sean Hannity station, and have at the top of every hour the CBS News. The best news package in the world is from CBS, and we have a great platform. I'm the morning host, as I say. And the question, I'm not a big fan of Christmas. Okay, I'm a Christian, but Christmas has just kind of worn on me, especially Christmas hymns and Christmas songs. Last night at Ingleside School, which is an experimental school using the Charlotte Mason method of pedagogy here in Chattanooga, there was a dinner of the families of the students. My wife is a tutor there, having homeschooled her children with only one left at home. She has had time on her hands and has been involved in this free market educational experiment using the Charlotte Mason method. The dinner had very good food and delightful songs by these children who were very enunciating of the verses they sang. But we had, as part of that, a bout of hymn singing where everyone was supposed to be involved. I just had a hard time raising lung to Christmas music. Not because I care not about the Lord Jesus and the real meaning of Christmas and the reason we celebrate Christmas, and not because I don't have that celebratory aspect in my breast, but I think it may just be just a matter of age that I've had enough Christmases and I've heard the same songs for more than 50 years, and maybe we can think about something else. And so I wanted to, in that spirit of you might say in that negative spirit. You can call me, by the way, at 800-8949. That's 800-8949. In that spirit, that blighted spirit, think about the following. And I have John Whitehead to thank for it. If Jesus were born in a police state, and these are things that I think as we hear about these dolorous circumstances of the modern era, as we were thinking just a moment ago with Brent Allen Winters about the difference between living in a common law society as the kind that Alexis de Tocqueville discovered in the 1830s in his tour of America, and the time we live under now, which is under statute, right? We live under laws, and as he points out, the reason we have statutes is we try to prevent bad things from happening, right? We have laws rather than ones that govern acts already in the past. We have laws that project into the future and try to control the future. I think that's a beautiful phrase describing what we have. And so whenever you, my listener, who says you are a free marketer, who says you're a conservative, who says you're a Republican, perhaps, maybe you're a Democrat, and you care about independent and individual liberties, when you say we need to have a law on this point, what you're doing is you're rejecting effectively the common law heritage that de Tocqueville discovered, and that the Bible, well, promises as a blessing. And so we don't have that because we're not under a blessing, right? Even though the equities are at their peak, the markets keep going higher and higher, and President Trump is harumphing the modern security state, which is enveloping, as he says in his speech yesterday, enveloping the economy as a national security issue. For our safety, right? For our safety, we make sure we keep all, we can lock in, we can put these high gains in the market, we can lock them in a cell, and they won't get away from us, right? That's how that works. And my number is 800-8949, 800-8949. And what if Christ had been born in Chattanooga and moved to Chattanooga? The parents, of course, of Joseph and Mary, coming here to answer the census. Well, they would have gotten a 28-page American Community Survey, and which he describes as a mandatory questionnaire documenting their habits, their household inhabitants, their work schedule, how many toilets they have, and he points out that there's a penalty for not answering $5,000 or up to $5,000. But what he doesn't point out, this is a constitutional attorney, is that there's no compulsory mechanism in the statute. I've read the statute. And while there is a penalty provision, there is no antecedent compulsory liability provision. And that's something you might want to think about. If you're being told by an officer there's a penalty for doing this, well, maybe so. But there has to be first a provision in the statute which creates the penalty, right? Creates, not the penalty, but creates the liability. In other words, the necessity by the state that you do a certain thing, that's called a liability statute. And for every statute that has a penalty provision, there should be, but often is not, the antecedent, meaning the coming before liability provision. And this is David Tulis. I'm glad you're tuning into my program. And think about Jesus being born in Chattanooga. What kind of welcome would he get? I think he would get a welcome in the churches that would be entirely not magnificent, because modern Christians, especially those in Chattanooga, as I'm visiting churches to try to solve my problem, don't view the Lord Jesus in a kingly fashion really at all. They say they do. There's a lot of discussion about the Lord Jesus as the king, but in fact, his commandments are widely rejected as somehow contradictory to his grace. Right? Christ is given to mankind as an act of grace by God, but his law, which is explored in detail in the Old Testament, is rejected. It's rejected because there's seen to be a conflict between law and grace. So Joseph and Mary, if they came to Chattanooga, they would be getting in the mail a 28-page community survey, and Mary could have been harassed for having a home birth. Right, one couple in Washington had all three of their children removed after social services objected to the two youngest being birthed in an unassisted home delivery. Joseph did not have a doctor present, and yet the birth was prosperous to the Lord God in heaven and to the baby Jesus born. Had Jesus been born in a hospital, his blood and DNA would have been taken without his parents' knowledge or consent, and probably entered into a government biobank in Nashville. While most states require newborn screening, a growing number are holding onto that genetic material, John Whitehead says, long-term for research and analysis and other purposes, right? Unknown purposes, touching on state necessity, you could say. This is David Tulis, and the number is 800-8949, 800-8949. Well, what would happen to Jesus if he were born today, I wonder? And you can tell me at your leisure. I do appreciate your call. If Jesus' parents had been undocumented immigrants, they and their baby would have been shuffled into a profit-driven private prison for illegals, the conditions of which we were hearing in yesterday's news are simply miserable, where they would have been turned into cheap forced laborers for corporations such as Starbucks, Microsoft, and Walmart. Even Victoria's Secret, there's quite a lot of money to be made from imprisoning immigrants, especially when taxpayers are footing the bill. And point number 5, if Jesus had been born in Chattanooga, Well, he would have been going to school, no doubt, Hamilton County schools, and he would have been drilled in lessons in compliance and obedience. That is the main reason we have schools, that people are discouraged from thinking independently, and especially when it comes to asserting their rights. That rights are not something you learn at school. I sat at the Christmas dinner yesterday with a man who teaches mathematics at Macaulay, and Mr. Carpenter, and he and I asked him what kind of teaching about rights and law do the elite children in Chattanooga get? And he said, well, they might learn something about texting or sex. He couldn't think of the word. The word is sexting. Texting a sexual image on a phone. They might learn about that. Well, that's really not much when you consider that the traffic stop is perhaps the most important encounter that people have with the state. They don't learn that in Macaulay, and certainly they don't learn that in the government school here in Hamilton County. Now, what if Jesus had disappeared for a time? Well, he did actually. When Joseph and Mary went to Jerusalem, Jesus was 12 and was He stayed behind to argue theology with the scribes and the Pharisees, the learned men of his day. Well, had his parents been giving birth to him and reared him in Chattanooga, leaving him behind in a public place like that might have brought an arrest and jailing for negligence. Parents across the country have been arrested for far less offenses, such as allowing children to walk to parks unaccompanied or play in the front yard alone. We haven't heard of cases like that here in Chattanooga, but listen, this is David Tulis. If you know of a case like that, please bring it to my attention. We are quick to cover stories of this kind when there are clear-spoken abuses of statute or the family unit. We are very pro-family here, and I cover local economy and the free market every day here on the David Tulis Show, ordinarily at 9 and ordinarily done at 11. But we are all new Nooga Radio, and I just wanted to touch base with you, my listener. If you hadn't heard of our show, it's just a little earlier every weekday. Now, the data of Jesus, had he been born here in Chattanooga, would have been closely monitored, right? This is called data harvesting or data mining. He would have been mined rather than disappearing from the history books from his early teenage years to adulthood. His personal movements and all of his data would have been documented, tracked, and monitored and filed by governmental agencies and corporations such as Microsoft and Google. John Whitehead says that 95% of school districts share their student records with outside companies contracted to manage data, which they then use to market products to us. From the moment Jesus made contact with an extremist, now here we are not overlooking his period as apprentice carpenter, but in his 30s, right, he began a very short ministry. 2 years in ministry, and he encountered an extremist, John the Baptist. He would have been flagged for surveillance because of his association with a prominent activist, and that is what happens today. There are people who are being tracked for their activities. We're talking here about people who are concerned about animal rights, people who are concerned about agricultural reform, those who promote and peddle or peddle homeopathics, for example, written up in NBC News in the past day. Just wanted you to make note of that. The FDA is cracking down on, the headline is snake oil homeopathy. That's from NBC News. These are people who are routinely tracked. And if you are someone dealing with John the Baptist, who is a dissenter from the religious establishment of that day, you might be monitored by someone for your poverty relief efforts or your anti-war efforts or other such extreme activities. He would probably have been labeled a domestic extremist. Jesus would have been. Law enforcement agencies are being trained to recognize signs of anti-government extremism during interactions with potential extremists who share, for example, a belief in the approaching collapse of government and the economy. Now, these are things that, the idea of a collapse, these are things which I think a prudent man would want to look out for, right? If you have assets in the equities, don't believe what you're reading, right? Don't believe in the the story in today's Wall Street Journal about Warren Buffett and the value of shares of Berkshire Hathaway passing $300,000 for a single share. That's a great story. And when you read that, you think, oh, man, I'm just so rich. I'm in the stock market. And the shares have been going up for the past 9 years. We're in a new era, no doubt. We're in a new era. And so someone who says no, someone who says look twice, who warns against an equities apocalypse, as some do, will be viewed with great caution. And the number is 800-8949, 800-8949. While traveling from community to community, Jesus might have been reported to government officials as suspicious. Now, this is something that we hear reports of. I hear Russell, our news director, sometimes in the morning making mention of a suspicious persons report. Well, who would ever call somebody a suspicious person and call police? Call police because someone is walking with a camera in front of him down a walk along the riverfront, right? There are some industrial sites there. And not long ago, a man was harassed by police officers because he had a camera who was making a video as he walked along. And it was published, and I reposted it at Nooganomics.com. We have people who are suspicious, suspicious persons. Well, the reasons I think the threshold is very, very low. So Jesus would have become caught up in the See Something, Say Something program. Many states have such programs, including New York. John Whitehead says providing individuals with phone apps that allow them to take photos of suspicious activity and report them to their state intelligence center. How about that? We have fusion centers here. Rather than being permitted to live as an itinerant preacher, Jesus might have found himself threatened with arrest for daring to live off the grid outside. In fact, the number of cities that have resorted to criminalizing homelessness by enacting bans on camping, loitering, have doubled. So Jesus would be there. Had he used the internet to spread his radical message of peace and love, found his blog posts infiltrated by government spies, integrity, discredit him, or planned incriminating information online about him, like he had a girlfriend or he entered into a brothel and did not come out. At the very least, he would have had his website hacked, monitored. This is David Tulis, and we are here at Nooga Radio. Do thank you for giving me just a minute of your time. We are all new, Nooga Radio, all new, 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4. That's FM HD4. My name is David Tulis. I'm the morning host every weekday here at our hot station. We are all new, Nooga Radio, all new. And I run the morning news and analysis show and argue for local economy and the free market. Just by the way, if you are in the radio sales business, contact me if you'd like to work for our extremely aggressive multimedia platform. We are looking for a sales representative, a marketing representative, and we have a great opportunity. We don't have a huge sales staff, and there are many myriad accounts that are, I would say, top line accounts that are yours if you call me and show that you have credentials and good faith and would like to work in the radio sales business. Just contact me, David Tulis. We have an ad on our platform, but you can just call me here at the station. If you want my number here at the station, once I'm off the air, is 800-8949. That's 800-8949. Call me about that. I'll be having lunch at my desk here after this little encore of the David Tulis program. We're brought to you by Frost Cutlery, by the way, and it's over on the way toward Knoxville, and it's a great shop with every kind of knife you could want, every kind of knife you could think of at the knife shop at Frost Cutlery. Frost Cutlery is a major distributor of knives and owns several noted brands of knives. And my name is David Tulis, and we are glad to mention them as well. Also, the Escape Experience of Chattanooga, which is a platform in which you can have under duress, right, under the ticking of the clock, you have a challenge. One is to avert a nuclear calamity. Another is to escape from a prison with a short time window to effect your release, and that's called Escape Experience of Chattanooga, the best escape experience platform in Chattanooga. My name is David Tulis. I'm arguing every day for the following: loving your neighbor and buying local, and having as the fruit of Christianity, as I like to say, that near is better than far. That we see that and believe it, that small generally is better than big, that simple is better than complex. And in the footnotes, which I understand are small type, I understand the small type, but I just so you know, I prefer Helvetica type because it's neutral, and there are no serifs on the type. The serifs are not shoes on letters such as the letter A, but they are in fact knives. And the government, when it uses language, it always has knives on its sentences, right? Its sentences have periods and use commas and exclamation points rarely, but sometimes. And they're all aggressive and compulsory forms of speech, right? Written speech. And so I don't want to share in the use of knives on my speech, so I always use Helvetica type. And in the footnotes, back to the footnotes now, at 5-point type, very small type, that I argue that personal is better, much better than corporate, and that physical is much, much better than abstract. We're brought to you by Nooganomics.com, and I am the blogger with the biggest pen. That is to say, the writer whose pen is 180 feet tall or taller, from which emanate our wonderful, wonderful, powerful 92.7 signal on Signal Mountain, and also 95.3 HD4. The name is David Tulis. Now, about Jesus. Right, if Jesus were born today, what kind of life would he have? It was really much better under Rome, which was a military empire, an aggressive empire. It's better now, better then, really, than now. Even though now we have, as Gary North points out at Lou Rockwell, we have amenities and blessings such as medicine and conveniences such as data storage and automobiles that were not thought of at the time. We had perhaps more liberty back then, but the aggressions of modern government are great now. They were nothing like what we have now back then in his day. If Jesus were trying to feed large crowds of people, remember that, he would have been threatened with arrest for violating various ordinances prohibiting the distribution of food without a permit. And of course, you've heard the story about the 90-year-old man who's arrested repeatedly for
the Tennessee Valley's news
feeding the home
leader, Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. 3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
A family car and a semi-truck on Bonnie Oaks Drive early this morning crashed, leaving 5 hospitalized. 2 have been released and 3 remain in critical condition. Traffic reports say that the semi was resting on top of the vehicle. Traffic investigators working the case. A fire scare at DuPont Elementary caused early dismissal yesterday. Apparently, a power surge caused several light ballasts to burst, causing smoke to enter into a hallway. School was dismissed early, and after school care was canceled, everything should be back to normal today. Jerome Porter has been arrested in the shooting case that happened outside the Coyote Jack Saloon Sunday morning. He's accused of killing 22-year-old Jerome Porter and injuring 24-year-old Tory Porter in an argument that occurred outside that saloon. He's been held on bond of $1,100,000. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM.
Sam Jordan, News Talk 92.7 Sports Now. Bradley Central and East Hamilton split a pair of games last night, with Bradley Central winning the girls game
49-40 in a game that featured two unbeaten Class 5-3A opponents. East Hamilton beat Bradley Central in the boys game 78-60. Meanwhile, Brainerd Chassie Walker put in 31 points to guide the Panthers to a come-from-behind victory over Red Bank 79-72. Red Bank drops to 5-5 on the season. The University of Tennessee Chattanooga wrestling team evened its record at 3-3 with a 22-19 win over visiting Ohio in McClellan Gym. Last night, the Bucs scored bonus points in all 5 of their wins in a duel that saw the lead change 4 times. Covenant men's basketball team had 6 players scored double figures and never trailed in a 100-85 victory over Austin on Monday in the Rhodes Holiday Classic at Mallory Gym in Memphis. Covenant will be back in action tonight against Rhodes. Tip-off set at 4 o'clock. Sam Jordan, News Talk 92.7 Sports Now.
Expect drier and milder weather out there through your afternoon. Some leftover clouds, but not bad. Highs into the upper 50s. Tonight, some late fog possible, not too cool. Lows into the lower 40s. For Tuesday, high 60 to 62, with rain becoming likely late, continuing through Wednesday. Experience the magic of the holidays with Rock City's Enchanted Garden of Lights. Create your one-of-a-kind adventure with dazzling views and almost a million colorful lights. Visit CRockCity.com for all of the magical details. And I'm Soar Sheen Foyle, Chief Meteorologist Patrick Cole.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
Goss Insurance. Yes, we are local. And no, we don't have an 800 number. In fact, our mobile numbers are on our business cards. We live, work, play, and worship in Chattanooga, and we would love to help with your insurance. Business, auto, home, life insurance. Call now, save money. Call Goss Insurance for all your insurance needs. Goss Insurance, 875-2500. 875-2500.
We have got problems in our company, and to solve them, I'm going to put those people in my company through escape experience in Chattanooga. Then they will settle their differences. They will agree. They will see if they can work through the misery of the experiences and escape experiences, that they will solve any problem together, and they will stop the squabbling in my office. I will bring that to an end now. I'm going to call escape experience and have these people go through that hell, that difficult experience. They will be friends afterward forever. Escape experience. Get them on the phone now.
Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity, 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News. NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at Noogaradio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
This is David Tulis. I'm glad you're giving me just a minute of your time. We are here